It's time for portaling. We take a deep dive into the Iowa football transfer portal, what they're looking at, who they're looking at, and the guys that have departed. A lot of football talk today. Locked on Hawkeye.
You are Locked on Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked on Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked on Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can kick off the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is portal season. It opened up yesterday, and the activity is pretty heavy already for the Iowa football team. We've talked about this in the past. Iowa has a lot of work to be done, with 23 departing seniors moving on, a number of walk-ons also changing. The dynamic of the Iowa football roster is changing and evolving. And I'll tell you one thing, this is difficult for Iowa football. Had a conversation with a walk-on family member that said when Kirk told him the news that basically we're not going to have room for you with the change in the scholarship or the roster limits. It's not a scholarship limit, it's a roster limit at 105, going from the 125 to 135 guys that they carried in the past. There are going to be guys that are left by the wayside. There are guys that would have eventually become players that would have played, potentially started, that are going to be looking for new homes. And as we go through and we look at some of those guys that are just walk-ons, moving on, Aiden Price, Johnny Bacuzzi, Rusty Van Wetzinga, Cole Marsh, Trent Kakarice, Jalen Thompson, Ryan Kennan, Graham Fredrickson, all these guys. I think eventually, at least some of them would have had an opportunity, not just to help on special teams, not to run out of the tunnel, but to be players that were going to be important to Iowa football. This is a huge component to Iowa. And it's been difficult for Kirk talking to these guys and saying, there's nothing we can do. It's a roster limit. It's a difficult conversation to have with these guys that in the past would have been impactful members of the Iowa football program. It's changing. It's evolving. It's different. And frankly, it's not good for Iowa football, but it is the reality. And adapt or die, right? And I was going to have to adapt. Here are the scholarship guys that are currently in the portal as of Tuesday. Cade McNamara, yes, we know. James Rezar comes in this year, gets moved to wide receiver after a month, tears his ACL. He's on his way out. Marco Lioness is in the transfer portal. Grant Leeper at tight end. A lot of people like Leeper, thought he had a chance. Caden Crawford, defensive lineman. Jeff Bowie, banged up. Probably wouldn't have been a player if he didn't get banged up, but here we are. Caleb Brown, we knew that happened during the season. And LaShawn Williams. Those are the guys of the scholarship players that are in the transfer portal. I was doing their own work, so let's get into it. And it starts at quarterback, and things are ramping up in a big-time way at the quarterback spot now with Hank Brown. Hank Brown has already set up a visit now. This according to HawkeyeReport.com. Tom Caker, Blair Sanderson, guys do incredible work over there and really are tapped in to the recruiting world. Hank Brown is going to be visiting later this week. We remember 2 years ago how quickly it all came together with Cade McNamara. It felt like as soon as we said the name, a day later, it was happening. And it very well could be this quick with Hank Brown. Now, Hank Brown played for Auburn this year. This is a guy that was wanted. This was a guy that had good pedigree coming out. Good size, 6'4", 205 pounds. From Wheaton, Illinois. So a relative local guy. There's a connection to Tim Lester. Not a connection, but from the same area growing up. So you got that component. This year, he goes 27 to 43, 63% completion percentage, 403 yards, 6 touchdowns against 3 interceptions. The year before that, during his redshirt campaign in 2023, 7 to 9 passing. But then you look under the hood and you go a little bit deeper into those numbers for Hank Brown. Against New Mexico, good. 17 to 25, 4 touchdowns. All right, we have something here. In the SEC game against Arkansas at home, Auburn, by the way, lost to a pretty average Arkansas team at home, 24-14. He goes 7 to 13, 72 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Okay. In the past, we've talked about how despicable, just how hideous quarterback recruiting was under the previous regime at the offensive coordinator spot. It was bad. And you went from Ken O'Keefe, who now you wonder, was he ready for retirement? How checked out he was in terms of quarterback recruiting? That aside. Brian Ferentz was running the ship, didn't know quarterbacks, and we see how this has played out. The quarterbacks that he brought in were dreadful. And Tim Lester has pedigree. Tim Lester has shown an ability to find quarterbacks, both at the mid-major level, at the group of 5 level, at Western Michigan. You look at what his quarterbacks did. He did it as a player. He knows quarterbacks certainly better than his predecessor. And because of that, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And if this is truly hands off for Kirk Ferentz, we're going to allow Tim Lester to go out and find his guy. And he sees something in Hank Brown. All right. I'm willing, at minimum, to listen, to go down the direction and saying, yes, this is going to be something where we need to let Tim Lester evaluate. Now, I still maintain they're not done. I still think even if they get somebody like a Hank Brown, who has 3 years of eligibility, that they're not going to be finished up. They're going to continue to be looking. This is not going to be it. It could eventually be it, but they're going to be looking for a guy that can come in right away and compete for the job. Because Brendan Sullivan and Jackson Stratton are not winning you 9, 10 games next season. With that schedule, I don't know if many quarterbacks are going to win 9, 10 games. With that aside. So that's where we are right now. Iowa has made their first offer, also in the transfer portal from Miami of Ohio. One of the most coveted transfers in the market is Raion Strader, a quarterback, 6'1", 182 from Miami of Ohio. They're going shopping in the MAC. Shopping in the MAC can work, though. And Strader, 6 foot, coveted. A lot of people like him. PFF numbers are really good. Here's the thing that's crazy. He's 6 foot tall. Wingspan of 6'8". Got those long arms. Iowa needs help at cornerback. And with the departure this season, that we're going to see with Jamari Harris moving on. As they looked all season long for that second cornerback, and were never able to find it, you're left still looking. TJ Hall had moments. Deshaun Lee had moments. John Nestor, they believe, is going to have a moment. But we haven't quite seen it yet. John Nestor had a good half, and the back half was at the Maryland game. That aside, they need more, and that's a position. Another position I believe that they greatly need is going to be tackled. Now, some great news today, as Logan Jones announced that he is coming back for his last season. Look, I was maybe as hard as anybody on Logan Jones 2 years ago. He was brutal, just absolutely dreadful, struggling snapping the football, ball coming out late, ball just struggling with some of the most basic tenets of being a center. He improved immensely. And he took a step forward last year, maybe not as big of a step, but I think a lot of us wanted. This year, he became a solid center. We know about the speed and athleticism that he has at that side. And we know as a center, just that is one of the strengths of him as a player, is what you have. Is that power, speed combination that he has, an ability, to, even as a center after snapping the ball, to get out there on a stretch play. He can run counter. He can lead. He can do those kind of things because of the athleticism that he has. Him coming back is good. Jennings Dunker, get him back. That's good. You bring back 3/5 of your offensive line, and with the guy that played a lot in Cade Peeper as your 6th offensive lineman and some goal line packages and short yardage packages, all right, you're feeling pretty good. One spot, though, you're still looking is left tackle. Now, Iowa has interest, let's say, in a couple of offensive tackles. The first to name from Illinois State, Hunter Zambrano, 6'5", 300 pounds. Another one that they're following down at Rice, down in Texas, is Ethan Ananawa. 6'6", 345. That's a big dude. So those are just a couple of fouls. Again, it could mean nothing. It could mean very little. You don't want to overreact to what it is. That's where we are. A start. We're diving into the portal. There's going to be a whole lot more news. And like I said, Be prepared. These things happen quicker. This is not the recruiting process. Guys in high school going to camps. This is speed dating. This is going through things quickly. In Iowa, they're ready. They're ready to go. They know that they need to do a lot of work in this transfer portal. Are the funds there? They're all right. Could they be better? Yes. Donate to the Swarm. That's how you can make an impact right now. Let's talk to Scott Dochterman from The Athletic. A lot of Iowa football talk with him. He was at the Big Ten championship game. His thoughts on Oregon, Penn State, and his thoughts on the quarterback position. What I was looking for in the transfer portal with Scott Dochterman. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. I love live betting. Keeps you interested and intrigued throughout the course of the game. You think you got a hunch? You're covered with everything you need right there on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Just visit FanDuel.com today to join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Scott Dochterman was in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. Penn State, Oregon. Turned out to be a pretty good football game. Doc, Trent, and Ken, as always, thank you for coming on. I guess where I want to start with you, Doc, is I don't know about you, but I've had the opinion that there's just not that great team in college football this year, right? There's not this dominating team that, boy, if they come up against them, your season's going to come to an end. Maybe I've been overthinking it. Maybe that team is Oregon. You watch them on Saturday night, especially on the fast track. This Tez Johnson and Jordan Jones, my God, those guys, not the biggest dudes in the world, but can flat out fly. They got a great quarterback. I think they're well coached. They do a lot of things well. Have I been overthinking this, Doc? If it's been there staring me right in the face this whole year that Oregon might be that team that I'm looking for?
Yeah, I think they're the best team in the country as we sit right now for all the reasons you mentioned. They have tremendous offensive tackles. They have speed. They're the fastest team in the country. They've got a good defense. They're capable of winning it all, and I think they're the favorite to win it all based on what I've seen. Seen them now twice, and they've combined for 80 points in those two games, and 45 of which was against Penn State, and again, a very, very good defense, and they've done it all year. But I also think you're right in that there is no dominant team, that this is a team that's capable of losing a game. I mean, you don't go, Madison is a very difficult place for anybody to play, especially at night, but this is not a typical Wisconsin game team.
Yep.
And to play the way they did against, Wisconsin, frankly, the way they played against Purdue the first time I saw them, I wasn't real impressed. I thought it was just kind of a dazed effort. 6 days earlier, they beat Ohio State, and then they had to fly 3 time zones east and play on a Friday night on a short week of rest. And, they won 35-0, but it was kind of a mailed in 35-0. So, yeah, I think that this is it's a year somebody's capable of beating them, but they have to beat them. And, I still think Ohio State may be the most talented team. I think Georgia's up there if they have a healthy quarterback. But as of right now, Oregon, to me, is the best team in the country.
So we get the bracket in front of us. We got Boise. The path for Penn State as the 6 seed looks good. The path for Texas as the 5 seed looks good. And the paths for the 1 and 2 seeds look a little bit more difficult. So tweak this thing if you can, Doc. Is there anything that jumps out, tweaks to be made? Not adding more teams, going to 14 or 16, anything like that. But in the 12-team structure, how do we make this as most equitable, I guess, as possible?
I think what you're going to have to do, and I don't know if the powers that be are willing to do it, is you're going to have to seed the tournament according to the teams and you can allow the champions to make it, But this is a lot like what we would see in the AFC and NFC playoffs too, where division champions are automatically given a home game. And we've seen it, I remember Seattle being 7-9.
Yes.
Yeah. Playing 11-5 New Orleans and then beating them with Beastquake that time, about 15 years ago now. Yeah. But being able to do that. And I think that the powers that be, whether that's the SEC and Big Ten, saying we're going to take our ball and go home if we don't do this, is saying that the best team should have, be ranked and seated accordingly, and then just make sure at the end that you have in your champions. That's probably the best way to do it. Because right now what we're seeing is, Ohio State and Oregon, to me, they could be the best two teams in the tournament if they're playing at a high level, and they could be playing in a national quarterfinal at the Rose Bowl. So, that's probably where it has to go. But, there's going to be a lot of irons in the fire in 2 years. I think you're going to probably see a push for probably all the conferences in some ways to make sure that they have a mandated number of teams getting in, and then it's probably going to be an expanded field. So whether seeding is still part of that, I don't know that the ACC and Big 12 will say, yeah, sure, well, let's just have, the committee seed everybody. Because there's an inherent bias, and that probably won't be alleviated anytime soon.
I'll give both of you Bears fans a little something to pick you up with. That 7-9 Seahawks team that beat the Saints, who beat them the next week, right?
We're going way back. Oh. We're talking about a Bears playoff victory.
Did they win the playoff game? I so long in my dementia
right,
getting the best of me. I don't remember that ever happening.
No, but it did. It did happen that year. No doubt about it.
Doc, a little bit on the Hawkeyes. The quarterback room has been geared of the Brian Ferentz regime, as Marco Lyonez is the latest to enter the portal. There are two stayovers, Brendan Sullivan, who sounds like he's going to start in the bowl game, or at least have a chance to, and Jackson Stratton, who came in late this summer, but it's going to be a whole new next season for Tim Lester. What have you heard on that front? They're shopping connected to Miller Moss, connected to Connor Wigman, and there's going to be other names that are going to pop up here. How involved do you believe Iowa's going to be in the most important position in football, the quarterback in the transfer portal?
Critically important. I think that they are going to be big time in the portal. I wouldn't be surprised. It depends on what Brendan Sullivan wants to do after the bowl game, but I think he can still be there. And then, they're going to probably get two, I would guess, in the portal, maybe something similar to what they, had, with Sullivan and Jackson Stratton in the off season here in the summer. And, but when you look over the last 3 years, 9 different quarterbacks for Iowa has hit the portal. It's really an embarrassment. They're 131st in the country in passing offense. And I don't think, I give Lester a mulligan on that, because he had to deal with what he was inherited.
Sure.
But it's been an embarrassment, pure and simple. They have blown recruiting in that position. It's like a crater. Every quarterback since 2017 has hit the portal that they've recruited.
That's wild.
And then you look at the ones that they've signed in the portal. Cade McNamara, he's in the portal. Deacon Hill went to the portal. Brendan Sullivan's here. He's got one more year left. But so that is just the worst possible thing you could do as a program, and still they're having at least 8 wins a year all those years. It's insane. So I would expect them to go hard after a quarterback. I've been, I think Devin Brown makes a lot of sense from Ohio State. I think he fits what Tim Lester wants. He's a good player. Some people are like, oh, I'll pass. I'm like, I don't know why you would say that. He's better than anybody Iowa's had since at minimum Stanley, if not before that. But then there's a few others out there, and there's probably somebody that we're not sure of. That's probably another factor here. So, but I would anticipate Iowa would probably bring it in 2 when they need to.
When you look at price tags, obviously you would think just on the surface, a USC quarterback, a Texas A&M quarterback, going to be more expensive than a Tulane quarterback. That's the kid I want to hope that they look at. Mensa, 3 years of eligibility left, 22 to 8 touchdown to interception ratio. Can run the football a little bit, but he can chuck it around a whole lot. Where do you is there a resource doc where we can find the going rate for some of these guys, ballpark even?
I know.
Nothing like that, huh?
Well, yeah, we're not going to be able to find, I mean, no, everybody's lying
Sure.
when it comes to the portal anyway, so I wouldn't anticipate that being a part of it. But, that to me has been the big question for what Iowa wants to do is, how much do you want to spend? I would think that they want a starter. That's what they're going to go get. And if they get a starter, that's probably going to cost them at a minimum six figures, but probably in the mid six figures at the lowest, just to get somebody good coming in the door. Okay, well, that's, you should be able to afford that. You're Iowa, you're in the Big Ten. And then after that, though, it's do you go after Jackson Arnold? Do you go after Miller Moss? That's going to probably cost you seven figures. Okay, well, if you're Iowa, go do it. If you think that's what you need to do, and I would suggest that next year is a year that you might have to win with a little bit more offense than you have in the past, because your defense is going to be, if nothing else, new. So you're going to have to go do something there. But that said, if you feel like Brennan Sullivan is a guy that you can win with at times, or you like him and you want to play him some, and maybe go the other route that you suggested, somebody with 3 years of experience left. I use the example of Luke Altmaier at Illinois. He was at Ole Miss, and he was pretty good, but they passed him over. They went and got Jackson Dart, and so he left. And then Illinois brought him in, and he had 3 years of eligibility, and his first year he was okay. His second year he was really good this last year, and he's got one more year left. So that, maybe that's the route you want to go, is to have somebody who can kind of split reps. So there's a lot of options. I mean, I keep a running tab, and I haven't checked it for the last couple hours. So I had 73 quarterbacks in the portal as of about 9:30 or 10 this morning. So I'm sure it's probably over 100 by now. So
yeah, I heard Arnold signed with Mississippi State, by the way.
Okay. So I missed it while I was trying to arrange where I was going to go to the playoff games.
By the way, where are you? Are you going to start Friday in Notre Dame and then head to Columbus?
As of right now, the crazy scenario that I'm trying to work through and figure out is go from Notre Dame, Penn State, and Ohio State all within 24 hours by car. So if anybody wants to be my chauffeur, I would take them.
You know what? I bet you would find somebody.
Yeah.
Wow.
You get him a spot in the press box. I think you can find that person
and
make that happen for those games. That'd be a fun 3 games. So, well, Hank Brown's another one I just saw from Auburn. Maybe a connection there with Iowa, a redshirt freshman that played a little bit this past season. It's going to be incredible. Well, there is a bowl game. Unfortunately, it's not going to be Caleb Johnson against Luthen Burden, who Ken knows I absolutely love that dude. Those guys will not be playing in the bowl game. And I guess Missouri, they can't opt out of this one, right? They got to play the Hawkeyes.
They can't opt out. No, Michigan can't opt out of its bowl game either. Yep. So if we want to reverse time here on that, but it's a fascinating matchup for so many reasons. I mean, you've got a 9-3 team against an 8-4 team, SEC versus Big 10, and it's not that far for either location. Much closer for St. Louis, of course, but from Missouri, I should say. And, they recruit against one another in St. Louis and Kansas City and some places. I mean, Missouri has kind of elevated its recruiting to map beyond Missouri. And I think Iowa's been able to take a little bit of advantage of that, and so has other schools. And, they've only played on the field once. They've had to cancel 5 different games since 1910. But, Missouri was less than impressive this year compared to where I thought they would be. I did watch them several times. But, so they do have some talent, no question. So I think this is going to be a spirited game. And, I think it's one of 5 between the Big Ten and SEC. And so there's going to be a lot of interest in it.
Great stuff. Scott Dochterman will read you at The Athletic, as we always do. Can't wait to figure out that travel.
Yes.
What a day into the next day would be. Phenomenal weekend of college football. Doc, thank you.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Yep, thank you.
So much.
Scott Dochterman from The Athletic.
Today's episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with the promo code College. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites, from legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. OMAHA steaks.com. Extra $30 off. Make sure you use that promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So we get ready for CyHawk week in hoops. A lot of portal activity, a lot of football talk, and we got you covered there. But yes, there is basketball. It will start tomorrow night, Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock tip-off on FS1 as the Iowa women play host to Iowa State. Now, the Iowa State women came into the season with a lot of pub, a preseason top 10 team. They returned 4 starters from a year ago. They did some work themselves in the portal, brought in a player from Marquette, another good transfer that solidified that lineup. Audie Crook's the headliner. I argue Addie Brown, the other sophomore, might be just as good, a good point guard. But tell you what, they lose to UNI. Yeah, it's a road game, but that was head-scratching. Maya McDermott went off in that game, the former Johnston Dragon, and dominated in the basketball game as the Panthers got the upset win. Then they go to face off against South Carolina on Thanksgiving. They got murdered. Just an absolute throttling. I think we're learning that Iowa State's going to be good, but maybe not some of the expectations that were there over in Ames on the women's side of things. Here comes Iowa, fresh off a disappointing effort against Tennessee. Disappointing, not that you lost the game, but it was just the fashion that you lose that one, turning it over 30 times. And not just turnovers because of pressure. There were plenty of those. Turnovers because it didn't look like you knew how to break a press. It looked like JV basketball. It was many different times we saw just how hideous that thing was. And I think that's where the frustration comes from that loss. It's not that they lost to Tennessee. It was just the fashion. Tennessee had 29 more shots in the game than Iowa did. And you can anticipate if Iowa shows an ability to break that press, Iowa State, who doesn't press a ton, they're going to do it in this game. And until Iowa proves that they can get past it, they're going to have to do that. Lucy Olsen's been a godsend. She's going to have to be good once again. But you need Hannah Stuelke to bounce back after that 7-turnover game. You need to rely maybe a little bit more on those freshmen who I thought looked the part at different times in that game, just didn't get the same kind of minutes. It was, watching back, though, some of the turnovers and the press break that they were going through, it was confounding. I mean, just some simple things where you're staggering screens to try to get the ball to Lucy Olsen and let her go to work, and they didn't. We know that's what they're going to be working on this week. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to win that game. Looking at the FanDuel Sportsbook app as we're sitting here on Tuesday evening, still don't have a point spread for that one. I anticipate, though, Iowa will probably be a slight favorite in that one. On the men's side, we talked about this earlier in the week and also last week, every day, as you know. I think people are going to be surprised by this point spread. Projected point spread right now, Iowa State favored by 5 in Carver on the men's side against the Hawkeyes. 83-78 is where Ken Pomeroy has those numbers. Zaydu Troy looks like he's going to at least be able to give it a go in this one. His athleticism's going to be big. Possibly, maybe even Cooper Koch is going to be out there. Freya mentioned that earlier in the week. I think that was a surprise because it felt like some of the reports that were out there is this thing was going to be much more significant. In fact, there were some whispers maybe Cooper Koch was going to be out for the year and it was going to be a medical redshirt year for him. Not what Fran said on the press conference on Monday, though. At least an opportunity maybe for Cooper Koch to be back out there. They need depth. They need the pieces, obviously, to go. Here's the scary thing. We know these Iowa State teams recently, what they are. They're going to grind you. They're going to clutch and grab. It's going to be like watching a Nizzo team. It's going to be like watching Bo Ryan's Wisconsin teams, and it's going to be ugly and boring, and that's what they do. But Iowa State in the past could just beat you that way. And if you're hitting shots, you're knocking down threes, and there was a tight whistle, and you're getting to the free throw line 25, 30 times, you beat them. This Iowa State team now has some offense to go along with it. 6th in the country in offensive efficiency to go along with the 10th ranked defense in the country. this team for Iowa State feels different. However, I just have a sneaking suspicion. I believe Iowa's going to play well in this game. I think Iowa's going to have a chance to pull off the upset against the Cyclones. And I don't say that very often. I don't fall into the trap very often, but this one, I just got those vibes that this Iowa team's going to be ready. And I've told you, I feel like there's something different about this year's Iowa men's basketball team. I could be dead wrong, and it could be more of the same. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, but there's something that gives me hope. Hope is a dangerous thing. We know that. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Being with us here each and every day, we got you covered on all fronts. Locked On Big Ten, Craig Sheeman doing a great job over there, talking Big Ten football and basketball as we get ready for the bowl games and an onslaught of the Big Ten on the basketball side of things. Not just that, your favorite MLB team with the hot stove heating up, NFL team, NBA, NHL, you name it, we got it here on the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.